Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Austrian on the home side, half Swedish on the away side. Out of both of these breweries, it's only the Swedish one that has featured on the channel before, but they've featured quite a few times, and I would describe them as being a very solid all-round brewery. They like to try lots of different styles, and they always put out pretty solid examples of them in my experience, so I do keep an eye on what they're doing. The Austrian brewery, on the other hand, is one that I've been meaning to review something from for quite a wee while. I don't come across their beers all that often, actually, but they are supposed to do some very nice things, and the styles of beer that they brew are styles that I very much enjoy, so introducing them on the channel is long overdue. But doing it in this way, when they have a collaboration with a Swedish brewery, I think is actually a very nice way to do it. So yeah, the beer that we're going to look at today is a style that I very much enjoy, one of my favourite beer styles in fact, but it's also one that I don't get to review on the channel all that often. So yeah, this will be a nice review in that sense as well. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for the home side of things then, we are going to head down to Austria, as I mentioned. We're going to go to the historic region of Invierteil in Oberösterreich, which is kind of in the Linz area of the country, and we're going to a little town called Engelhartszell an der Donau, and I will apologise for any bad German pronunciations in this video. But that means, of course, that we are going to have a look at our first beer from Stift Engelszell, who are the Austrian Trappist brewery. So this particular beer is called ABT Grand Cru, or should we call it ABT? I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, we'll go with ABT, ABT Grand Cru, 10.5% ABV. This one is brewed in collaboration with Eskilstuna Ölkultur, who are from Eskilstuna out to the west of Stockholm. We've had some very nice sort of Belgian-style beers from them in the past, of course. But yeah, this beer was fairly recently released through Systembolaget here in Sweden as part of the Tillfällig assortment, the temporary assortment. But yeah, this should be pretty cool. But it looks like Stift Engelszell have been doing some collaboration brews over the last week. Well, it says this is part of the Friendship series of 2022. But yeah, 10.5% quadruple collaboration between Stift Engelszell and Engelhartszell an der Donau in Austria and Eskilstuna Ölkultur here in Sweden. So yeah, let's crack on and see what we have. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my future reviews that I'll do from Stift Engelszell, very first time they're featuring on the channel as I mentioned, but also to my other reviews that I've already done from Eskilstuna Ölkultur. There will no doubt be more in the future, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is massively, massively appreciated, and of course you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one both in the Austrian playlist and in the Swedish playlist, since it is dual nationality, and we will see about getting some more Austrian beers to review for you here on the channel at some point soon. I do have my contact in the Vienna area. But yeah, let's get on and have a little look at the brewery notes. So we'll start with Stift Engelszell, since they are the home brewery in this case. So, as we've mentioned already, Stift Engelszell are a Trappist monastery based in Engelhartszell an der Donau in the Invierteil region in Oberösterreich, Upper Austria, I guess we could say, which is quite close to the Bavarian border, the German-Bavarian border. But the abbey was founded back in 1293 as a Cistercian monastery by Bernhard of Prambach, who was the Bishop of Passau. So the abbey was settled by monks from the Wilherling Abbey, the parent house, and it was attached to the Molymond Abbey. So the abbey thrived for many years, but it went into decline around the time of the Protestant Reformation, and it actually passed into private ownership for a period of time. But from the year 1618, the Wilherling Abbey started to restore it. So on Easter Sunday in 1699, the abbey suffered from a terrible fire, and that plunged the organisation into financial crisis once again. So Leopold Reichel was appointed as the abbot, and he actually rebuilt the finances and the present-day abbey church. But Leopold turned out to be the last abbot, and then later in 1786, Engelszell was dissolved by Emperor Joseph II, and the buildings were then used for secular purposes, factories and schools and things like this. But fast forward to 1925, the Engelszell Abbey was refounded as a Trappist monastery by German monks who had been exiled from the Olenberg Abbey in Alsace. Remember, of course, as part of the Treaty of Versailles, Alsace and Lorraine were returned to France, having been won by Germany in the Franco-Prussian War in 1870, if I remember rightly, about that sort of time. I forget the exact year, maybe 1868. But yeah, they had basically, the monks who came from Olenberg had been temporarily housed in the Bantz Abbey, but they were looking for a permanent home, and taking over the Engelszell Abbey and reforming seemed to be the way to do it. But in 1931, having started out as a priory, it was granted the status of abbey, and it was led by Gregorius Eisvogel, who had been appointed by the Bishop of Linz. So in December of 1939, the abbey was confiscated by the Gestapo, and the community of 73 was evicted. Some of the monks were sent to Dachau concentration camp, which is close to Munich. Some of them were imprisoned and others were sent to the Wehrmacht. But following the culmination of the Second World War in Europe in 1945, only about 1/3 of the community returned, but they were joined by refugee German Trappists who had been expelled from the Mariastern Abbey in Banja Luka down in Bosnia. But the current abbot is Bonaventura Diamant, and he's been in place since 1995. But the monastery, as all the Trappist monasteries do, tend to fund themselves from mainly the production of agricultural produce. They used to produce cheese, but not anymore. But in 2012, the monastery was approved as the 9th official producer of Trappist beer, and they operate a 15 hectolitre brew kit, so 1,500 litres, 1,500, and they have 3 core beers, one of which is called Gregorius, and I believe that's brewed with a local honey, if I remember rightly. But yeah, I've seen that one fairly often. But as of October 2022, when we're filming this review for you, they've produced 7 different kinds of beer so far. And yeah, as I say, we will have a little look at reviewing some of their own beers in future videos. But this is the one that I happened to come across, and I did fancy a quadruple. But yeah, that is all I can tell you about Stift Engelszell and the monastery. And the brewery, of course. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the website. They have a really nice monastery website, of course, that you can go in and see all the things that they do. You can follow them on social media. They do have a presence there, which is quite interesting. And yeah, have a look at that. But let's go on to the Swedish side of things and have a little look once again at Eskilstuna Ölkultur. So, Eskilstuna Ölkultur, or Eskilstuna Beer Culture, if you want to put it into English, was founded by the homebrewers Arto Ukura, Kauko Laakkonen, Thomas Humbla and Bosse Gustafsson, along with Anders Olsson. So these guys met at the Swedish Homebrewing Championships, and they wanted to give Eskilstuna a brewery once again. So together they managed to rent a building in the town centre and establish a beer bar, which was opened at Christmas back in 2003. So these guys are nearly 20 years old actually. But once the bar began to do really well, they thought that they should begin to brew for themselves, and then in 2006 they officially founded Eskilstuna Ölkultur as a brewery. But in 2008 they moved to a larger premises because they outgrew their original brewery and bar, and they were helped apparently by an army of volunteers to get the new premises up and running. So they received their brewing equipment from China in September of 2008, and they've continued to expand their brewing capacity and range ever since then. In 2018 they brewed around 130,000 litres of beer, and for a long time it was Anders Olsson who was the main brewer, but they now have somebody new in, and Anders has taken a step back. He's still involved in the business, of course, and a little bit with the brewing, and Arto Ukura, he is mainly involved in the business side of things. As of October 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, Eskilstuna Ölkultur have produced 185 different kinds of beer, and like I said earlier, these guys like to do lots of different things. You know, I've had Irish Reds from them, I've had Pilsners, Triples, Quadruples, Scotch ales, barley wines. You know, these guys like to do a lot of different things. I've not actually tried a New England IPA from them, if memory serves me correctly, but that's probably about the only style I haven't had from them thus far. But yeah, these guys, very, very interesting brewery. It is one of the places that's on my list to visit in Sweden, so yeah, we will hopefully get an out and about video done up there at some point. But yeah, Eskilstuna and Örebro do have, you know, nice beer culture, like, you know, craft beer culture up there actually. So those are 2 cities that I do need to visit here in Sweden. So yeah, that's all I can tell you about Eskilstuna Ölkultur for the moment. Again, if you want to learn more, check out the brewery website, follow them on the social media, and of course you can check out my older reviews to learn more about the different beers, or you can have a look at the Untappd page. But yeah, let's actually crack on and have a little look at this one and see what we're going to get. So As you can see, the artwork on this one is quite interesting. You can see Eskilstuna Ölkultur, they've changed their sort of symbol potentially. So I need to have a wee look at one of their own beers at some point soon. But yeah, you can see it's more like a kind of keyhole just now. But it used to be the outline of the building of the beer bar, which was always very nice as well. But there you can see on the top the Engelszell bottle cap on this one. Trappistenbrauerei, Engelszell. It's very nice. But yeah, this one's a 330 milliliter bottle. As we said earlier, it is 10.5% ABV, a quadruple. I never actually gave you a look at the Engelszell symbol. There you are. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see a Trappist brewery doing some collaboration beers as well. Those are always very, very interesting. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I'm very curious to see what it's going to have in store for us. A 10.5% quadruple, this one. So I'll need to keep that bottle cap, my first from Engelszell. So yeah, let's see what we have here. I should point out as well, I think I mentioned it briefly earlier, this beer was released as part of the Tillfällig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden. I believe this was released at the end of September. I've had it sitting for a wee while. Of course, there's no harm in doing that to a quadruple, of course. Particularly bigger malty beers, they tend to kind of mellow out quite nicely when you age them a little bit, particularly the brown sugary ones in my experience. So, anyway, as you can see, this is poured beautifully, I have to say. Yeah, one of the darker quadruples I've come across recently. But before the head disappears on this one, we can see that it's poured with about a half finger of a frothy, I would say kind of medium beige head there. The colour of that is really nice. I'll just bring that up to the camera and let you see those nice bubbles. The glass is still a little bit wet because I washed it before the video. But yeah, there you go. Nice. Kind of, you know, fairly bright beige bubbles actually. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of that head there, which has incidentally just faded down to be a nice kind of thin foamy layer there. But yeah, colour wise, this one, I think we have to describe this as like a very dark sort of stained mahogany chestnut. It's not a million miles away from the colour of the glass bottle actually. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on one, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar is caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts that you put in the beer will affect the colour too. And when it comes to the quadruples, yeah, it will be mainly the type of malt and the wort boil that determine it. But I guess, you know, with Belgian beer, what they tend to do with Belgian style beers, they tend to put a bit of brew sugar in them and that's why they feel a bit lighter in the mouthfeel, but a little bit more carbonated almost, and that's also why you get the higher booziness to these beers. So yeah, this one, I have to say, does look very nice, but like I say, one of the darker quadruples I've come across in recent times. Not going to complain about that though. The colour of the beer doesn't matter that much. The main thing, of course, is how it tastes. But yeah, I don't think we need to say anything else about the appearance of this one. It does have a bit of a kind of Coca-Cola coloured edge to it in a sense, a bit of Pepsi Max colour on the edge there. But yeah, dark chestnut I think is the best way. Stained mahogany maybe as well. Those are probably the two best ways to describe the aroma of this one. But let's take a wee look at the aroma and see what we have then. Oh yeah, that's a beautiful smelling beer. Love quadruples, really do. Of course, some really nice examples would be the Rochefort 10. You can't really go wrong with Chimay Blow either. And of course, you've got the West Vletron. But yeah, the St. Bernardus 12 is always a very good one as well. So yeah, they were brewing the West Vletron beers for a good wee while, remember. But this one is absolutely lovely. It gives you everything you want from the style. Lovely bit of sweetness in there. Good bit of red fruit. You've got the yeastiness, you've got the maltiness. This one has everything you want. So let's just break that aroma down for you and describe it a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of the beer is, of course, that big sort of brown bready character. You do get a little bit of the kind of brown bread crust. You have a little bit of that sort of you know, you do have a little bit of that kind of wholemeal bread in there, a little bit of an almost kind of rye bready note as well. But the whole bready character in this beer, it really smells as if it's been, you know, dipped in brandy or something like that. It has that, you know, fruit that sort of boozy, fruit loafy type thing. You are getting little notes, of nuts and woodiness out of this one, and they come out particularly toward the front of the nose. So yeah, there's a little bit of there is definitely a little bit of that. Yeah, there's a little bit of that woodiness in there. There's a little bit of the nuttiness, and then you've almost got that kind of cakey, that boozy, Christmas puddingy, cakey type note sitting on top of it. But like I say, you've got the breadiness in there, a bit of the bread crust, the wholemeal brown bread, and also the kind of rye side of things, the sort of rye malty side of things too. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. Yeah, on top of that, you are getting the brown sugars, of course. So for me, this one has that big, oily, treacly molasses sort of thing to it. So you are certainly getting that. There is a little bit of a slightly sweeter, more biscuity note to it. And you do have a little bit of the straight up caramel. But at the same time, there's a little bit of almost fruitiness to the brown sugar. And that's, they'll have used like rock candy or some kind of brew sugar or something like that in this beer to take the alcohol percentage up, of course. So you are getting a little bit of that in this one. But yeah, the brown sugary notes are really, really nice. It doesn't really have, it's a bit difficult to tell because I did wonder with the colour of this beer if it had been given a longer wort boil, and you do get a little bit, there's a little touch of leatheriness to the brown sugars, but like I say, a big treacly molasses sort of thing, fairly highly caramelised, sweet caramel biscuit, and I do suspect, I'd be curious to know the length of the wort boil on this. I think it's maybe at least 6 hours, something like that, potentially more, but I think it does still give you a good bit of sweetness. It doesn't go too leathery, if that at all makes sense. Yeah, beautiful smelling beer and its malt base and yeasty characteristics though, absolutely. On the hoppy side of things, it is pretty much what you'd expect. I'd be very curious to know what they're using in the malt base of this one, or as the hops in this one, actually, I should say, because the Austrians do, of course, produce their own hops in different areas. The name of the hop that's quite often used in German Doppelbock has gone right out of my head though, and I would suspect that that could be a candidate for this one. Would it be Northern Brewer? Yeah, maybe. I think maybe Northern Brewer would be that one actually, because the English use Bramley's Cross, which is kind of similar in its way, apart from the green components. But the green component in the hoppy side of this beer, it has a little bit of, it's got a lovely little bit of earthiness to it. You've got a nice little bit of a kind of herbal character as well, which is great. And of course, you've got that nice kind of brighter green component. So there's a little bit of floral aromaticity in there. You've got some nice grassiness as well. But yeah, the way that this goes together is very, very nice. Yeah, I think, yeah, the green component, it's got that typical sort of Central European smooth earthiness, a little touch of herbal character, but yeah, the green component leans toward a more grassy note for me with just a little bit of floral character backing it up. The fruity side of this beer is very nice as well. You certainly get a good bit of oily plum. I don't think it's quite sharp and raisiny, but yeah, big oily plum for me. There's juicy figs in there. You do get a little bit of that drier kind of datey quality out of it as well. But yeah, there's a wee bit of blackberry and black currant in there for sure. As I say, this beer gives you everything you want aroma-wise from the style, so I think it's about time that we taste this one and see what we've got. So yeah, this is the ABT Grand Cru, a 10.5% quadruple from Stift Engelszell in Engelhartszell and the Donau in the Invierteil in Austria, in collaboration with Eskilstuna Ölkultur, one of the kind of pioneering craft breweries from here in Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers, prost. Ooh, that is very nice. Just going to say straight away, thumbs up. Again, it gives you everything you want from the quadruple style. Yeah, lovely, lovely beer, this one. Yeah, it's the first impression I have of it is it does have that big, highly caramelized thing to it. You can tell it's got a bit of a longer wort boil to it. The sweetness in this one, it does give you a good little bit of maltiness and yeasty character later on too. But yeah, I really like how this one, goes together for sure. So, yeah, this is just very, very well done. You know, Engelszell do have a very strong reputation. As I say, Eskilstuna Ölkultur are very solid with all the different styles that they try. In my experience, I'm not surprised this beer is as good as it is. It's a really nicely done quadruple. I would say it's one of the more kind of treacly ones that I've had. It certainly leans that way, but just, yeah, beautifully done beer. Thumbs up from me. So, let's try and break this down then and describe it for you. The other thing I'll say about this is that the malty character is a good bit smoother than I thought it was going to be from the aroma, actually. But that's because the brown sugary side of the beer is so dominant, I would say. So let's focus on that middle third of the palate then. The backbone of the beer, you've got that little bit of kind of brown bread crust in there. On top of that, there's a little touch of that kind of wholemeal brown bready sort of thing, and then you do get a little bit of a slightly rye bready character. But the bready notes in this beer, as I say, they do get a little bit taller the more you drink of the beer, but you can feel it is a little bit more kind of airy. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit more sort of airy, and the whole bready character just feels it's like a fruit loaf, like a brandy soaked fruit loaf that you're getting out of this one. So yeah, I like how that goes together. But yeah, lovely tasting beer actually. Yeah, gets a big thumbs up from me. Where do we go with this? On top of that brown bready layer then, what you'll also notice is that toward the front, sorry, of that middle third of your palate, you do start to get a little touch of a woody note to it. I thought it was a bit nutty in the aroma, but to me, you know, it's more of a woody note, and it develops the further into the aftertaste that you go. So yeah, I do like that. But on top of the brown bread, this is where you get all the nice kind of brown sugary notes. So on top of the bread, for me, you do have this kind of layer of a slightly crispy brown sugar. It's almost a little bit biscuity, you know, McVitie's digestive biscuity like. So yeah, yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is very nice. So yeah, a little bit of that, yeah, just biscuity layer on top. Then you get all the other kind of brown sugars there too. So if you go right into the dead centre of your palate, you can feel that's the kind of concentration of the booze. You know, this beer is 10.5%. It is a bit of a monster. You do need to bear that in mind. So go into the dead centre of your palate. You've got that big, as I say, you do have that nice big concentrated, you know, treacle molasses sort of thing. As you move further out from it, you can feel a little bit of what I'm guessing is the kind of candy sugar, rock candy, whatever it is they've used in this beer to take the alcohol up. So you can feel that because the brown sugar starts to get just a little bit of fruitiness to it. And then as you move further out from that, you start to get the kind of, you know, you're moving out from the centre of your palate, you start to get a bit more of a straight up sweet caramel actually. So it's almost like the brown sugars start off in the dead centre of your palate, very concentrated and a lot darker, but then as they move further and further out, you start to get the kind of brighter brown sugars in a sense, and a little bit of the biscuity character. But yeah, again, this is one of these beers where everything just fits together in really nice harmony, and it's a lovely beer. It really is. I think that's everything we need to say about the middle third of the palate. Let's go to the back third of the palate then. The border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of bready build up in there. It's almost a little bit cakey in a sense. Like I say, you've got a bit of it's almost like a fruit cake, Christmas pudding, you know, brandy soaked bread. It's something like that. But the base of the back third of the palate, you get a little bit more graininess out of the kind of bread crust. On top of that, you have the bready layers again, and they're taller and slightly more airy, and again they get a little bit kind of more sweet, and then some of the brown sugar almost creeps over into the back third of the palate as well, so you do kind of feel that in this one. And then on top of that, you've got the more airy elements of the the yeasty side of the beer. So again, it's just like a very light, airy, somewhere between a wholemeal and a white bready character, and again it feels quite sort of brandy soaked in a way. So yeah, the back third of the palate, the flavour is definitely taller, and then as you come further forward, it just condenses down a wee bit, and the flavours squash together that little bit more. So yeah. So yeah, the way that the beer goes together in that sense, I think, is very, very nice. So yeah, I think that is everything we really need to say about the malty and yeasty side of the beer. The only other thing to say is that the further you go into the aftertaste with this, you get more of the woodiness coming out of it, and you do have that kind of fruit cakey, Christmas puddingy type vibe to the beer, which I really do enjoy. So back corners of the palate, you've got that nice little bit of you do have that nice little bit of earthiness in there. It's a very smooth earthiness once again, but that spreads a little bit further forward. There's a little touch of a kind of herbal quality to the beer, and then as you push toward the kind of front corners of the palate, you do get a little bit more floral character, and it is a very noble type note that you get out of this one. But round the front curve of the palate, you get a little bit of a lighter grassy sort of thing, and in fairness, the grassiness does have a little bit of a zesty character to it. I am drinking this beer quite young, for sure. You could age this a lot more, but I wanted to try it. I wanted to get an Engelszell review on the channel. And of course it's Eskilstuna Ölkultur as well. We know that they are solid with these Belgian beers. I just wanted to try it, that was the thing. But yeah, you could age this a little bit more, and the hoppy character would of course drop out of the beer that little bit more too. But as it stands, it's still a very, very nice beer, this one. You probably would get a bit more yeastiness out of this as well, I think, the more that you aged it. But as it stands, as I say, flavour balance is very good. So I would say on the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of the beer, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of that bready build up in there. It's a little bit more of a kind of fruit cakey sort of thing. So you can, and again, it's a wee bit Christmas puddingy, but then the base of that front third of your palate, you get the nice, you can feel a little bit, it's almost like the kind of biscuity notes come forward into the front third of the palate too, but you get a wee bit of the kind of lighter brown bread in there as well. And on top of that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So, if you go to the back of that front third of your palate then, you do have a little bit of a kind of, there is a little bit of an oily plum and a wee bit of the drier pruny note there, but the base of that, the back half of that front third of your palate is a little bit more kind of datey. It is like a kind of really nice kind of dry datey note, but as you come further forward from that, you start to get a little bit of a figgy note, and then in the front half of the front third of your palate is, yeah, black currants and a little bit of blackberry. So yeah, again, the way that that goes together, I think, is pretty nice. Yeah, it is quite, this example of the quadruple is quite a kind of dry fruity one, but it gives you the nice oiliness, and of course that lingers into the aftertaste. It kind of adds to the booziness that this beer has as well. This does feel like quite a boozy quadruple, but again, that could just be because this one is quite sort of treacly leaning, but it could also be that I've just not had one of these in quite a wee while. I can't remember the last time I had a quadruple actually. I think it was with one of my colleagues from Bishop's Arms, Alan. I'm sure we had the Rochefort 10, and that was really nice. So yeah, this one goes together very, very well for sure. On the I think that's everything we need to say about this one. The only other thing, as I say, yeah, the dry fruity character in this is very nice, and it really is a sort of treacly, molassesy leaning quadruple, but it gets a big thumbs up from me. Let's round off this review with a wee look at the mouthfeel then. So, mouthfeel wise for me, this beer, it's very much kind of full bodied. It's one of the thicker quadruples I can think of that I've come across. So I'd put this right in the mid range of full bodied. Carbonation is very, very smooth. It's got a lovely big oily mouthfeel to it. But at the same time, it does feel clean. You know, the quality Austrian water, a very mountainous country, of course, the Alps. So yeah, you've definitely got that. You definitely have that sort of vibe to it. But I think, yeah, at the same time, the brown sugary notes in this, the breadiness and the brown sugars, this is a big, big, oily, slightly sticky, cakey triple. I think quadruple, not triple. That's definitely fair to say. The hoppy side of the beer, I think you're talking about 20 IBUs in this, but of course that depends on how long you're going to age this beer. You could age it a lot longer than I have, but the fruitiness in this one, it's a big oily thing with a lot of dry fruity character. So yeah, I do like how this one goes about its business, so it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, I think we can leave it at that. Pardon me for this review. So this one was the ABT Grand Cru, a 10.5% quadruple, a collaboration between Stift Engelszell in Engelhartszell and the Donau in Invierteil in Oberösterreich, get my German pronunciations right, in Austria, in collaboration with Eskilstuna Ölkultur here in Sweden. Lovely beer, and I certainly don't regret having bought this one. I forget the price that I paid for it, but definitely good value. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Stift Engelszell and from Eskilstuna Ölkultur. Give me some recommendations. Do give me some Austrian beer recommendations as well if you're watching from down there, because we will be trying to get some more Austrian beers for you on the channel in the future. But yeah, till the next time, slange it, skull, cheers, and I'll see you guys very soon. Prost.